Conor, it's interesting to kind of hear what to see what we've gotten already out of United and, of course, out of American Airlines today. Let's start with American, because they were pretty clear about this idea of just how much fuel costs are really starting to impact the bottom line.
Yeah. So yeah, fuel's been on the rise. The prospects of a further escalation in the Middle East obviously are not going to be good for that. From my standpoint, fuel kind of is what it is, and airlines really can't control that. What they can control is the supply within the industry. And right now, you got a couple bad actors out there that are kind of putting a fair bit of capacity in the U.S. domestic market. So the airlines that used to have pricing power, I'm sure that you and people around used to complain about those fares all the time. They've started to cool a fair bit, specifically within the domestic market. So airlines that don't really have premium services or international exposure have really struggled. The Delta, American, and United all do kind of play within those same buckets. I think the issue really for American is their relative margin performance has really been underwhelming relative to Delta and United. So, think about just this third quarter, they did about, I think, 5.5% in terms of operating margins. Right. Delta and United were these mid double digits. So, again, they've just been lagging in that overall recovery phase so far.
I am curious, though. I mean, how much help are they going to get from just an increase in travel, or at least some sustaining of the trends that we've seen here? Some of the reports that we got coming out of this earnings release was this idea here that bookings heading into the holiday season, at least here on the U.S. side, domestically, are running below where we would normally have been in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say about that is just the peaks in general. If you talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm not all that worried about those type of timeframes. People will travel for those periods in general. The issues right now that I see are more on these off-peak timeframes. So we're still continuing to wait on business and corporate travel starting to recover. It's gotten a little bit better. You've heard some green shoots there, but it's still, slower than overall growth that we would like to see. So these off-peak timeframes are going to be pretty difficult, and that's also when there's just a lot of capacity that's been added to the system, specifically within the domestic market. So keys for me going forward are going to be more around people being rational with their overall capacity outlooks. Alaska today made an adjustment into first quarter of next year, pulling down some capacity. So that's a nice rational move. But we're really waiting on the southwest of the world potentially making an adjustment next year as they're growing a fair bit right now. So until we see that, the group is kind of in for tough sledding right now because pricing power is slipping as we kind of see it.
And Conor, let's talk quickly about American's new pilot contract. Of course, we know that there's been a pilot shortage that's affected American as well. Now that perhaps the contract is in place, it's signed, when will that translate potentially into more pilots actually flying planes?
It's a good question. So, the pilot issue has been an ongoing thing for quite some time. What I would just say is that it doesn't appear to be a pilot shortage anymore, specifically at American. That if you think about it, like American, Delta, United, Southwest are all destination airlines. So if you're a pilot, that's where you can make your most money. You can basically move up into these wide body aircraft where you make a fair bit. So from a demand standpoint for pilots, they're not actually struggling to find them. I think part of the problem right now is that there's still a lot of constraints that are within the market. Delivery delays from Boeing and Airbus. We've talked a fair bit about air traffic controllers, specifically within the New York market, where they just don't have enough, so they're limiting the supply there in the near term. So it's not that there's a pilot shortage. I think that a lot of those issues have been rectified. It's now these constraints that are out there that are still kind of hurting the airlines from a growth standpoint.